Similarly, we have self-concept, which defined on page 27 of our textbook is the relatively stable mental image a person holds of himself or herself. Self-concept is reflected of personal life experience, narrative life scripts, and culture. It can be positive or negative. A positive self-concept makes you feel good about yourself, which helps communicate better. A negative self-concept makes you feel not as confident and shy away from communicating in general.
In the video Speak Up, they talked about how people that are quiet are more likely to get picked on. This drops their self-concept because they feel like they are not up to standard with society. It is proven that if you stand out, your self-concept is much higher than someone that sits at home and doesn't talk to anybody. Self-concept is very similar to self-image, the way you see yourself as a person. If you see yourself as a great person, your confidence is going to be great. If your confidence is great, your self-concept is greater. If you are under a lot of stress and you do not manage it correctly, then there are chances that your self-concept is dropping.
Purdue University states that helping your self-concept build back up can be more difficult depending on who you are and how you deal with it. But they give some tips. Treat others the way you want to be treated, which is also the golden rule, or respect. Always use positive facial expressions and try to look happy. Keyword is try. And if you work on your self-esteem, and your self-concept will follow.
Self-esteem and self-concept are often molded by how we think others view us. Our textbook defines social comparison on page 29 as how you see yourself compared to others. Depending on who you are comparing yourself to, your self-esteem could either grow or get worse. If you compare yourself to someone that is way above your stature, that you will have a difficult time reaching, then you will get disappointed and your self-esteem tends to go down. But if you compare yourself to someone that is way below you, it will grow. However, doing this will not progress you in life. So compare yourself to people around your abilities.
Here's a clip on how perception and self-esteem affects the way you see yourself compared to how others see you.
I'm a forensic artist. Worked for the San Jose Police Department from 1995 to 2011.
I showed up to a place I'd never been, and there was a guy with a drafting board.
We couldn't see them, they couldn't see us.
Tell me about your hair.
I didn't know what he was doing, but then I could tell after several questions that he was drawing me.
Tell me about your chin.
It kind of protrudes a little bit, especially when I smile.
Your jaw.
My mom told me I had a big jaw.
What would be your most prominent feature?
Kind of have a fat, rounder face.
The older I've gotten, the more freckles I've gotten.
I would say I have a pretty big forehead.
Once I get a sketch, I say thank you very much, and then they leave. I don't see them.
All I had been told before the sketch was to get friendly with this other woman, Chloe.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about a person you met earlier, and I'm going to ask you some general questions about their face.
She was thin, so you could see her cheekbones. And her chin, it was a nice, thin chin.
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke.
Cute nose.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
So here we are. This is the sketch that you helped me create, and that's a sketch that somebody described of you.
So yeah, that's...
She looks closed off and fatter. Sad.
too. The second one looks more open, friendly, and happy. I should be more grateful of my natural beauty. It impacts the choices and the friends that we make, the jobs we apply for, how we treat our children. It impacts everything. It couldn't be more critical to your happiness.
Do you think you're more beautiful than you say?
Yeah. We spend a lot of time as women analyzing and trying to fix the things that aren't quite right. And we should spend more time appreciating the things that we do like.
The author of The Search for Masculinity discusses the major influence that today's media can have on young boys. These boys often compare themselves to unrealistic views of masculinity. Frequently, images in the media highlight both macho and aggressive behavior and emphasize and reinforce the need to act tough and strong. The author also discussed how many times boys compare themselves to their fathers. They want to be like their fathers, but they also want to outdo their fathers. With young people, it's important to lead by example and provide a positive role model and pattern positive behavior for them to follow.
Social comparison isn't the only tool used to create our self-concept and self-esteem. Reflected appraisal, defined on our textbooks on page 30, is accepting yourself on how others may define or describe you. The author of The Search for Masculinity shows an example of reflected appraisal. From birth, our parents use different words when talking to boys and girls. Boys are referred to as strong and handsome, and girls are referred to as sweet and beautiful. As young children grow, they think they need to fill these roles. Once kids start school, there is a definite gender divide. Girls are found playing house and dolls, while boys play with trucks and cars. You wouldn't see a boy playing with a doll because that's what girls do. Boys are expected to play with cars, so he thinks that he has to play with cars. The Search for Masculinity also discusses how boys will hide their feelings and intelligence because they believe being sensitive or smart is something only girls do. You probably won't see a boy crying because he doesn't want to seem feminine.
With a person having a higher self-esteem and self-concept, it creates more confidence in that person to talk to many other people. A person needs to know how to speak different to each person depending on many factors, creating different languages within one language. On page 62 of our textbook, it tells us there's two types of communication, verbal and nonverbal. Verbal communication involves sending and receiving the message with words, while nonverbal communication is sending and receiving message through body language, posture, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact. The important part of language is context. Context takes into consideration the age, region, sex, and intellectual ability of each recipient. Also, the emotional state could come into play of the person you are trying to communicate with. You wouldn't talk to your teacher the same way you talk to your friend. You wouldn't talk to a girl the same way you talk to a guy. According to Kinlan and Thompson in Raising Cain, Protecting the Emotional Life of Boys, when talking to boys about their emotions, you have to protect their masculinity. If you start to treat them sensitively, they may shut down their emotions so they don't look feminine.
From our notes, you can see that there are 3 parts of language: how a person selects, deflects, and reflects. Depending on what you want the listener to think, you need to select the right words. If this can be done, then you are able to deflect any other way of thinking. You then are able to reflect on what is actually being thought. How you speak to others becomes your outward perception.
Ending our speech, it is evident that everyone communicates differently depending on their self-esteem, self-concept, language, perception, etc. So what does it mean to be a competent communicator? We think a competent communicator is someone who can express their thoughts and feelings verbally and non-verbally, while also effectively receiving what others have to say with an open mind.
To be a successful communicator, you need to remember to have an open mind when you're dealing with other people, and also to give positive verbal and nonverbal feedback. You should work on your self-concept and self-esteem to show your own self-worth. You should develop new and different language techniques to help relate to other people. By being versatile and working on all of these will help you to become a better communicator.
More to it.
Does anybody have any questions?
There's more to
Good, because you can't answer them.
There's more.